Good evening, folks, and happy Tuesday to all of you, and welcome to another episode of the Cover One Film Room. I am one of your two hosts on tonight's show, Anthony Prohaska, joined tonight by the founder of Cover One, which, of course, the Cover One Film Room is a part of, Mr. Erik Turner. Erik, it's not as much fun doing the film rooms when the Bills lose, but nonetheless, here we are.
No, it does. It sucks. And, trying to break down this film and stay positive, of course, because there's a lot of positive stuff, but you do have to critique them a little more. And it's actually a lot more difficult to break down the film because it sucks seeing the bad plays, because obviously the opponent did a good job. If you lost, they did a good job of attacking you on offense and defense. So that part kind of sucks. But, trying to figure out like who was in the wrong. Like that's also very difficult to do, because if you're running you're trying to break down a defensive play and you see the coverage and everyone's spacing well, it's like, okay, yeah, they did well. The rush got home. Like, okay, it makes sense. So it's easy to pick out like, hey, this is a good play, and you can show who did right. When you're going off of who did wrong, it's a lot more difficult sometimes, because some guys, maybe it's a miscommunication in a young secondary where they weren't on the proper landmark. Like, you have to really vet it a lot more. You have to watch the plays a few more times. So, yeah, losing sucks, but breaking down the film, it sucks even more because it usually takes a little bit longer.
You nailed my thought on that 1,000%. I can't tell you how many, if I had like a stat of like rewinds per play for losses versus wins, it's so much higher for the losses, because exactly to your point, like you're trying to figure out like, okay, Dolphins got this completion. Okay, who blew coverage here? And then you're trying to figure out the coverage. You're going through everything. But then what also throw you out too, when you got the younger guys, that's a great point. You'll be like, well, I think this was cover 3, but Timmy over here screwed up his coverage and he did something else. And that's what led to this. You're trying to decipher all of these things as you troubleshoot. And yeah, I second that notion completely. But nonetheless, here we are on tonight's episode of the Cover One Film Room. And in tonight's episode, as titled, the pressure was on, is on, and on is in all caps. And the reason it is in all caps is because Erik and I are going to dive into a lot of what the Miami Dolphins did on defense against Josh Allen and this Buffalo Bills offense, what they did from their pressure looks up front in terms of frequency and type and style, what they did to tax Josh Allen physically, but also from a mental standpoint, what they did to just put a lot onto his shoulders and a lot onto his plate, which is something that isn't necessary for the Bills offense because their offense is already Josh Allen. What they did in coverage, how they executed from a schematic structural perspective, individually and holistically. We're going to dive into that in a variety of ways. And of course, showing some quality Buffalo Bills plays along the way, some of the things that Josh did to play above what the Miami Dolphins were doing to execute, along with several pieces of his supporting cast. We're going to dive into a whole bunch of topics, anything and everything related to the Buffalo Bills offense in this episode of the Cover One Film Room. But Erik, we're going to start with something that I don't think is news to anyone. It was pretty hot in Miami on Sunday, and that played a significant role on both sides of the ball, but really for this offense. And one of the things, I know you had mentioned it, and it was the thought that creeped into my head as the game went on, all of these plays and all of this possession for the Bills offense, at some point, it was almost kind of like a negative because their offense was on the field so much that their offensive players wore down. Stephon Diggs coming out and saying after the game that he needed 2 IVs. Knox is going down. McKenzie goes down. And then you have the injuries on top of it. It was a war of attrition in this game, but the offense, because they were on the field for 90 plays to the Dolphins 39, they really got hit hard because of all the plays they were running, the type of plays they were running, all that time of possession. It really hit that offense hard.
Yeah, and you got to think about this. I mean, 90 plays. Typically, a game is like 60 to 70. I think the Bills are averaging like 66 plays per game. So 90 plays. Think about that in that heat. I know some of the players or people that were there on scene were saying that it felt like it was 110, some even 120, right?
Yeah.
So you got to think about that. I mean, as you can see here, the stats, 497 yards, 31 first downs. That's a lot of first downs, to 15 first downs for Miami. Time of possession, the Bills dominated that 40-40 in time of possession. That is the highest time of possession in a non-OT loss since 2014, according to NFL.com. So it kind of reminded me like like old school Rocky movies or even old school like Looney Tune cartoons where there's like a fight going on in the boxing ring, and then they just keep showing the signs of like, this is round 10, this is round 12, and then just jokingly, this is round 20. Like it felt like the Bills offense was in that type of fight where it just never ended. And when you looked at Josh Allen at the end of that game, you could see he was mentally exhausted. You could see all of those players mentally exhausted and physically exhausted. And that's what we're going to break down tonight. It was just, like you said, in the battle of attrition, especially when you include, some of the injuries that they had going into the game, some of the injuries that crept up, whether it was dehydration, cramping, the offensive line talent we're going to talk about. I mean, so many things did go wrong in this game when you're talking about the Bills offense, and it was unfortunate they couldn't pull it out, but there were opportunities.
That's for sure. And I think that's the frustrating piece, right? That there were so many things that went against the Bills that resulted in them losing. But again, if you're looking from the positive standpoint, it's like almost anything and everything that could go wrong in this game went wrong. And the Bills lost by 2 and arguably had a chance to win the game at the end still. So if you're trying to pull those positives, they're readily available. And I think the variables are, again, it's that frustrating piece because when you're looking at this game, as we do through the eyes of analysis, it's hard to try and pull things from it because there were so many variables with all the injuries going in, happening during the game, the weather, anything and everything. But you mentioned Josh Allen, and we start to shift the focus a little bit. We got to stop because we got a super chat. Thank you very much, White Town's King, for being here first and foremost. Thank you very much for your super chat. Oof. And he says, I was there on Sunday in the 200 section on the visitor side. And
so that was in the sun, I imagine, right?
Yes. Yeah. So he was in the sun. He said the heat was real. All caps, 2 exclamation points, especially by the third quarter. Yeah, that visitor side there, you're just baking in the sun because they don't have that shade there, that canopy piece that they have for the home side. Ooh, really like that in-game insight. Thank you very much, White Town's King. Awesome. We appreciate you. Yeah, so we shift that focus to Josh Allen. Erik, you and I, we made the joke several times on the show that if you open up the Bills playbook, it's just a picture of Josh Allen because that's what this Bills offense is. That is their identity. There's no like, well, we're a West Coast offense or no. I know there's like the Earhart Perkins pieces into it, but the identity of this offense is Josh Allen. They run through him. It is the Josh Allen offense, which is why it's so hard to replicate this offense with anyone other than Josh Allen because Josh Allen is a bit of a unicorn. So much was on his shoulders in this game. Like you mentioned, you saw it after the game when he was, talking to Tua. You just saw how worn down he was physically, emotionally, mentally, all of that. What do you think of his play in this game when we sit back and look at it?
Yeah, I mean, one of the comments right here, Mattis Center says, after week 3, Bills D, number 1, Fins number 31st. We put up 500 yards against them. How do all these commentators say Miami's D won the game? You have a great point, and it kind of, lends to this conversation because, Josh was battered at the end of this game, and 73 dropbacks had a lot to do with that. And also what the Dolphins did to them. Did they really stop him? No, they stopped the offense in the red zone, no doubt about it. And I put some of that on the coaching staff, Ken Dorsey, and some of his play calls. But Josh did move the ball, but it was a frequency thing, like the volume. 73 dropbacks is just too much. And when we look at the film, we're going to get to the film, but when we look at it, you'll see that they really tested him physically and mentally prior to the snap and post snap. And so, yes, the Bills racked up, these volume stats, but in the end, the Dolphins really just wore him down, and it did cause him to miss a couple plays. And it caused the offense to be exhausted. I mean, they were just shot. Think about that. 90 plays and all your receivers who are depleted, especially after Kumaro went down. Guys like Gabriel Davis weren't even supposed to play that many snaps. And then they're running full speed, 90 different plays. Like that's just too much. Or at least 73 plays, 73 dropbacks. Like that's a lot to ask. That's a lot to ask of the offense and the wide receivers. And so it did take its toll. So yes, they got the volume stats. But really what the Dolphins did was they tested Allen mentally and physically, and you could see it by the end, and you're going to see it when we get into the film.
That's a really great way to put it. And I think that's what it is. Like if you're looking at it from a total volume standpoint, you see what the Buffalo Bills did. You see the plays and the yardage and the time of possession. But Miami made them work for every single thing. Every play was like they had to squeeze blood from a stone. And a lot of that was because it was all on the shoulders of Josh Allen, even more so than this offense already is. This offense, like we said, open up the playbook, it's a picture of Josh Allen. It was even that those dials were all turned up to 100 or 1,000 against Miami because Gabe Davis saw 96% of snaps in this game on a bum ankle. He didn't look healthy. Diggs is falling apart. The entire offensive line might as well not even played with how many injuries they had. They're down to like third and fourth stringers. You're running receiver routes with Gilliam and Morris, not by design, but because you absolutely had to.
Yeah.
Everything was on the shoulders of Josh Allen. And like you said, Miami's defense wore him down. And by the end, when you add it in with their situational play, they were really able to kind of make him, I don't want to say inefficient, but make him battle and grind for every single thing. One thing that I keeps sticking in my mind too. So again, Josh Allen, 73 dropbacks, 63 pass attempts. He only had 4 attempts over 20 yards. Mm-hmm. They were able to keep everything up and forward. Josh Allen in 2021, his average depth of target when he was pressured was 12.4. His average depth of target when he was pressured against Miami was 6.3. Yeah, they were able to really, whether it was because of the pressure or the pressure combined with the coverage on the back end, force him to continue to go bit by bit by bit. And when you're doing that in the hot sun with depleted pieces around you, it eventually wears you down.
Yeah, and like I said, we're going to talk about this in the film room. We're going to show you. But yeah, it was like, okay, here are these zero looks, cover zero blitz looks. We're going to bring everyone. You got to get rid of the ball quickly, right? They got into Josh's head that way. But then they would show those zero looks, bluff him, drop out into Tampa 2, really force Josh to think, oh, look, now I got some space. I can really set up and throw the ball down the field. No, I got to check it down. So, like, they got into his head, and that's what we're saying. Like, they really tested him. Did they stop him volume-wise? No, they didn't. Not until that yardage in the red zone. Like, things really – and, again, I think some of those play calls were terrible. But – they didn't necessarily stop him, but they got into his head. They made him work for every yard. And by the time that, the game was on the line, he was shot. And that entire offense was. So I want to talk about, okay, they had the 73 dropbacks, right? The run game, man. It's time to have a conversation about this run game because we were, touting Aaron Kromer as, we basically gave him a statue before he even stepped foot at one.
It's in my living room right now. It's taking up a ton of space.
And obviously it's been disappointing thus far. It's concerning. There's no doubt about it. You guys should be concerned. We're concerned. But it is a small sample. It's only 3 games. And, when we're talking about why they're struggling, I mean, obviously injuries are a major factor here. And what else plays a factor, Anthony, in offensive line play when you're talking about 5 guys and even tight ends working together to run the ball?
I think the chemistry piece is one that immediately ticks up for me, especially with, we saw a lot of inside zone from the Bills. We saw some duo as well, and outside zone as well. But so much of the functionality of zone runs and duo runs, you and I were talking about this offline, that this is just one, microcosm of it. Double teams are such a key important piece of that. And an important part of the double team is you having the chemistry with that other offensive lineman, because you meet that, first defensive lineman, you feel the double team, one of you peels off and gets to the second level. That takes chemistry, that takes timing, that takes feel, along with everything else that exists on the offensive line in the run game, your execution piece, but especially in these zone concepts where you're working off these double teams and these duo runs, it's a big chemistry factor. And you go back all the way through training camp. Spencer Brown missed time. Ryan Bates missed time. Roger Saffold missed time. Now you come into this game and you're already coming into the game with your second string center. And then you have to put in your third string center, and you're putting Tommy Doyle at guard and Quessenberry is in. All of these players that don't necessarily have these reps together and have all this time to work on that chemistry and work on that piece. And it definitely showed with the backups. I think it's also showing a little bit with the starters. That's also part of why we're saying, it's a small sample size. We're only 3 weeks in. You got to give this group time to gel and process. I think the fair question to ask is, how much time do they need? Is it going to be by December? Is it by week 6? Is it next week? When does that line start to gel? When does that chemistry start to take hold?
Yeah, and the passing game, it's been kind of brought back over from Dable's system. So Dorsey implemented some of his things, but mainly it's still Dable's system with some new wrinkles. But the run game is relatively new. We're talking Kromer coming in and tweaking some things. So I do think it's going to take time. It's going to take chemistry and rapport for the offensive line. And, you know, the injuries obviously are a major factor. When you don't have Mitch Morse, we were talking about last week, like you can't necessarily get the ball on the perimeter as well as you want to when you know, especially on some of those pin and pulls, as someone said, they're not running as many of those quite yet. You're not getting, you know, Morse on the perimeter, and you're not getting James Cook on the perimeter all that often thus far. So let's look at some Football Outsiders adjusted line stats. It's a really good website. If you haven't heard of them, some really good stuff here. So if you look at the first column, adjusted line yards, the Bills at 3.43 are 32nd in adjusted line yards. Power success rate, so that's like 3rd and 4th down and 1, I believe, runs by running backs, 23rd. Stuff rank, how often they take a loss or only make it back to the line of scrimmage, they're 21st. Second level, so that's like 5 to 10 yards. How often running backs are able to get to 5 to 10 yards, they're 26th. Open field, weirdly enough, it's second, but that one I'd have to dive into a little more because they've had a couple explosive plays. I'm not understanding how they kind of, you know, compute that. But as you can see, these rankings are not good. And so, yes, you should be concerned. But what are your thoughts on like the formations they're using, the personnels they're using when it comes to the run game? Is it something that you know, maybe they need to tweak something? Like, what are your thoughts on Dorsey's run game and Cromer's run game so far when it comes to like formations and personnel?
You know, I really liked week 1, to, you know, to kind of put a holistic perspective together. I really liked, you broke it down in an episode, and I put a bunch of clips together on Twitter as well. I liked all the surge motion that they were using. I like what they were doing with Reggie Gilliam. I like more Reggie Gilliam in the run game, but I want it to be, so I'm okay with personnel. I think I want more gap scheme runs from this offense. That's what I'm not satisfied with at this point, whether it's pin and pull, whether it's power, whether it's counter, especially with how they're using 21 personnel. Last year in 2021, they were in 21 personnel 10% of the time. Through week 2 this year, 24%. And I like the variability. I like getting Reggie Gilliam out into the flat. I like sending him out on pass routes. But I want some of that power aspect to this Bills offense if we're going to go with those personnel groupings and then function in the play action and pieces after that. I think that's where everything for formation and personnel I'm okay with at this point. I would like to see just a change more in scheme or potential style of attack, especially with, and again, I'm not trying to pull the plug on zone, but with how they were successful down the stretch last year with gap schemes, whether it was, again, just simple pin and pull out of shotgun or putting Reggie Gilliam in there and going with an offset eye or a strong eye and running power and counter. I would like to see more of that gap scheme attack, especially considering how much this offensive line is struggling just to function on double teams and climbing to the second level.
Yeah, I like your point on 21 personnel because obviously Gilliam got that extension and he's been on the field a lot, as you said. You know, in prior years, Dable did a lot of studying of like the McVays, the Shanahans. We talked about that and some of the trends that they use. And we saw it with Cromer in that first week, as you talked about. And that 21 personnel, that fullback usage, that Gilliam usage, a fullback tight end type guy. I mean, there's a reason they like Gilliam, and, you know, they've done a good job with him in there when they, whether you want to call it 21 or 12, but I mean, they're top 5 in 21 personnel usage right now. Like that's surprising to see. And it's kind of echoes back to last year, the second half of last year, where they started using Gilliam a little more. I just remember like the Falcons game, when he's at, you know, Motor's able to bust out there, like they started using that fullback role a little more. So they're kind of carrying that over. But what I found interesting is a stat that we always talk about, and we always talk about it when it comes to the run game. It's
tell them about it.
Running versus light boxes. And what is a light box? A light box, as you can see here, hopefully you guys can see this. I'll zoom in a little more. How many defenders are in the box? All right. So a light box is 6 or less. Even would be about 7, and 8 or 9 or more. Now, a lot of this has to do with the formation too. So it's a little noisy. There's some, you know, muddiness to this, but we're going to try to keep it as simple as possible. So far in 3 games, again, this is only 3 games. It's a small sample. Right now, you can see the Bills are right here. They have 17 attempts versus light boxes. So 17 rushing attempts across the board. That includes a quarterback versus light boxes in 3 games. That's ranked 21st by attempt. Now, through 3 games last year versus light boxes, they had 57 attempts. That was ranked first. So again, it's the first 3 games, and it's a narrow way to look at this stat. But it's something we've always talked about. The Bills needed to be better against running against light boxes. and they're not getting as many light boxes this year, and that's something that, you have to study the film to kind of find out why that is. It could be formations, could be personnel, how, their alignments and all that stuff. So that number right there is pretty eye-opening, and we're going to have to let it play out a little more and let the sample get a little larger so that we can study it. But it's something we're going to have to address.
Oh, 1,000%. I think, again, not even just for us, because we diagnosed it in season and off season, but then when we sat down with Mitch Morse here in the film room and we talked about like, oh, what were some different things you saw from defensive fronts in 2021? And the first thing he said was, teams called our bluff and they dared us to run against light boxes and we didn't, so we're trying to course correct that. And I just think that was something that we anticipated seeing because of the nature of the Bills offense. Having that Josh Allen pass first spread offense is just built to run against light boxes. For me right now, my initial thought, especially after watching the film and seeing the percentages, I'm thinking because they've run so much 21 personnel, or they've gone with their 12 personnel percentages up as well. If you're just focusing on like Sweeney and Knox or Morris and Knox, whatever have you, I think because they're going with heavier personnel, they're seeing more regular or, heavier boxes because of their personnel groupings and formations. Because when they're going 21 and 12, sometimes you'll see like, well, we saw in this past game on a necessity, like Gilliam in the slot or Gilliam out wide. But a lot of times it's your traditional like 2 tight end formation, tight ends attached to the line, the other tight end or Gilliam is hipped off that tight end. I think we're seeing more defensive alignments that are meeting the formational alignments. And that's potentially why we're seeing less light box runs so far. But again, to your point, it's sample size right now. We're only 3 games in. This does not make a trend or a season. We have to see, is this who they are and what they are, or is it just being dictated by certain personnel formations or personnel groupings and formational alignments up to this point in the season?
Yeah, and I posted a tweet earlier about 21 personnel, and the Bills right now average 4.8 yards per attempt out of 21 personnel. That's 6th overall. That's pretty good, as opposed to 3.1 yards per attempt in 2021, which was 17th. 19 of their 25 rushes out of 21 personnel, according to SIS, have come on first down, which is surprising. It's like, okay, you have 21 personnel. Oh, here comes a run.
Yeah.
They're averaging 5.7 yards per attempt on first down, 21 personnel runs. So again, we don't know if it's just your traditional strong eye, weak eye, I formation type looks. That's something we have to dive into the film. Or sometimes they do align them out in spread type formations, and they even throw to Gilliam out of those personnel groupings. So that's just something to keep an eye on, because the light box runs are something that, we've been studying in the last couple of years. I was surprised to see how little they're getting them this year. I mean, that's from last year. If you look at 222 attempts versus light boxes, not including the postseason, that's like 13 attempts per game last year. Whereas this year it's like 6. So, I mean,
huge.
That's a big difference. And again, it's probably because of personnel and it's probably because of formational alignments, but it's something to keep an eye on, because we always liked getting the box numbers in the Bills' favor, especially when you have a quarterback that can run. He becomes that extra guy. So that's something to keep an eye on when we're talking about the run game. Yes, you should be concerned. We're concerned, but it's still a small sample, and it's going to take some time to gel. This is the new portion of the offense. This is the new portion of the coaching staff when it comes to, the transition from Dable to Dorsey. And so it is going to take time. And I mean, we still have the statue of Cromer in our living room, but we'll leave it in the living room. We won't put it at One Bills Drive quite yet.
I'll say, I'll leave it in my living room for now. Again, the key with all of it, much like we said after week 1 and week 2, when the Bills were looking fantastic, it was 1 game. It was 2 games. It's 3 games. We still need to see the entire sample size built and who this team and what this team is going to be. We said it in the offseason when people were asking us, when are we going to know about what Ken Dorsey's offense is? When are we going to know? We were like, honestly, probably not until like the end of October. You need like variety in opponents. You need that type of variability and increased sample size so that you really can figure things out and what they're going to be. But at the end of the day, the run game, and I think you really saw it in this Miami game, a game where everything got put onto Josh Allen's shoulders. It would have been nice if they had some sort of pivot in the running game, and especially from a running back perspective, which is something that's concerning and alarming to me right now. Just some stats real quick. So again, if we're just looking at the Miami game, Devin Singletary had 9 carries for 13 yards. He had a long run of 6. If you remove that 6-yard carry, he had 8 carries for 7 yards. Zach Moss, 4 carries, 46 yards, that big 43-yarder. You remove that 43-yarder, he had 3 carries for 3 yards. The Bills are 27th in total running back carries on the year with 49. They're 22nd in yards after contact. They're 3rd in percentage of runs hit at the line of scrimmage with 51%. They're 31st in EPA per attempt by running backs. And the Bills running backs are 22nd in broken tackle plus missed tackle percentage per attempt. So again, not ideal numbers from the running backs. I think it plays a little into that offensive line, of course, but the running backs aren't playing above the scheme enough. It's all just muddled and not a lot of great things. We got a comment in here from Aiden saying, let Cook cook. People clamoring for James Cook. There's a lot of pieces to go after from this run game and Josh Allen. And again, don't overblow anything too much just because of one loss, but there are some, some trends and pieces that are starting to show themselves that do require further analysis.
Yeah, and, the running game's important, as Ann said, because you need to give Josh Allen a breather. Like, you got to let him, okay, I don't have to handle everything for 73 dropbacks.
That's wild.
So handing off the ball, even if you do take a couple of those, run stuffs like you had mentioned, which they do at times, it still gives Josh a breather.
And it keeps the defense honest. It lets them know that you're willing to go that way, even if it's a failed run. The idea that you can still present that. Obviously, you want to be successful because you want the defense to honor it because it's a real threat. But you can't just come out and be like, all right, forget it. Let's just throw it 63 times and drop back 73.
Yeah, I mean, 73 dropbacks. And if you look at under pressure here, according to PFF, he was under pressure 43.8% of his dropbacks. That's 32 dropbacks. And when you look at how often he was blitzed, it's something we're going to talk about. They showed a lot of those cover zero looks or bringing extra guys. When blitzed, he was blitzed 38.4% of the dropbacks. That's 28 dropbacks. But as the comments have been saying, the Finns did all those things. The Bills still had a chance to win, and Josh still got his. When he was blitzed, he had 202 yards. He completed 77.3% of his passes, 9.2 yards per attempt when the blitz was on, and 2 touchdowns. So even though they appeared like the perception after the game was, for me, was like, holy cow, they blitzed and really got to Josh Allen. But then when I started looking at the film and looking at some of these stats, once the stats dropped, I'm like, man, Allen actually cooked pretty well when they sent those blitzes and pressure looks. But it was the dichotomy that we're going to talk about of, hey, we're sending those zero blitzes. And then all of a sudden, boom, they bluff them and drop out and play that deep Tampa 2 and force Josh to check it down when he thought he had a chance to actually push the ball down the field, which is why they only averaged, 6.4 per attempt or something?
6.3.
Yeah, 6 points. So,
the blitz.
Yeah, so it's just one of those things that it really played on Josh Allen's mind. And that's why running the ball is so important. And with that said, let's go ahead and jump into the film right here, Anthony, while you get this read going.
That is 1,000% spot on and what we're going to do. You folks who tuned in last week, which hopefully all of you did, you guys will know that we're under new sponsorship here in the Cover One Film Room. We are proud to announce our partnership and sponsorship with Nickel City Cigars, located in downtown Buffalo at 284 Franklin Street. What I think is really awesome, and Eric, we talked about it last week, is we recognize us as a brand at Cover One. We are niche and we hit a core group of consumer that necessarily isn't for everyone. And that's why that partnership with Nickel City Cigars is so awesome, because of how they approach their business model. They have such a new school kind of culture, and with how they incorporate a modern lounge and vintage arcade video games into their, cigar lounge and area. They've got several TVs for any and every game you're trying to watch. They've got bourbon, they've got cigars, they've got local craft beers, they've got a full members bar. They just really hit that kind of blend of something that's traditional and old school, like the cigar world, but then pairing it with kind of a new age culture and feel, and then really hitting their niche brand and customer. We're tremendously proud to be in partnership with them. Yeah,
I'm excited to be, partnering with them. They're, like you said, it's a culture thing, and Cover One, that was the culture I wanted to build. A competitive culture, a culture of really good content, and there's a lot of, much like the craft brew, whole wave. Like cigars have become a thing, right? Like cigars and these smoke lounge type places have become a thing, and They're, veteran owned. Tommy's a veteran. And it's one of those things like, yes, there are a bunch of these type of smoke lounge and members, cigar lounge memberships
not like them
in Buffalo. Not like them though. They have a different culture there, as you said. It's a little different. And, I've talked to some of the other cigar lounges in Buffalo. I have buddies that are part of it. And, doing my research on this company and Tommy's company, it was one of those things I was like, man, it just makes too much sense for us to work together. And, there's a lot of those places in Buffalo, but a lot of those people aren't from Buffalo, and Tommy is. It's a local place through and through. So we're excited to work with them this year. And if you order online at nickelcitycigars.com or in person, mention Cover One, throw Cover One in there online in your order, and you'll get 20% off. It's super affordable. They have, daily memberships. They have all different types of memberships there. And they have a pretty high clientele. There are some Bills players rolling through there at times and some legends. So get to nickelcitycigars.com to place your first order.
I really like too. I'm a big fan of places that, and again, maybe it's common in the cigar world, but I like that if you order online, you can pick up in store or have the order shipped to your door. Yeah. Like the fact that you can just rock with that and rock that product and have it shipped to your door, like regardless of like where you're at, like they're just super accommodating in terms of what they do and how they approach everyone. And so, yeah, big ups for Nickel City Cigars. We are very excited for, man. Yeah, really awesome partnership. And happy to announce that again for the second week in a row. And now happy, I guess, to dive into this Bills versus Dolphins film, focusing on this Bills offense. And again, just what Miami did, how it taxed Josh Allen in this Bills offense, and, how we kind of got to the final result that we did.
Yeah, I mean, first play of the game, the Bills come out in the empty. The Dolphins come out in that zero look. You see Knox kind of motioning across the formation, and I'll show you from the end zone angle why they're doing that. But you saw Josh immediately, pump fake, take the shot down the middle of the field. He was able to push it down the field on this play, which usually would cover zero looks. You're not getting that type of look. But Josh was able to here down the field, threw it from right around the 16-yard line to damn near the 50. I want to show you the protection. Diggs was down. That did kind of scare me when we were watching it live.
I was like paused it and was going in slow-mo, and I saw him get touched on the foot as he was airborne, and I was like, okay, he's down. But I was afraid they weren't going to call it.
Yeah, and so here's the end zone angle. You're going to see us break down several pass protections in this breakdown. So they're bringing Knox across the formation. You see a defender following him, and what the Bills and most offenses do when they get these cover zero looks or looks where they don't have enough blockers to pick up the pass rushers, what they do is they do a full slide. So on this play, you're going to see the offensive line slide to their right. So the offensive linemen basically have the gap to their right, and they're bringing Knox across the formation, and then Van Roten's going to snap it before he gets to the center, and then Knox is going to kick out Jalen Phillips off to the left-hand side, and they do a pretty good job on this play here. There's a nice little kind of twist coming on right here, but the Bills do a good job of picking it up here, and Josh is able to have enough time to not only pump fake, but, push the ball down the field. And this was a good tone setter. Like, okay, we're going to a passing game, an empty set, basically a 5-man protection, but then they add the one with Knox, and we're going to push the ball down the field versus your zero looks. And Josh was able to hit Diggs on the big play.
This is really good protection, like you said, considering the look and the front that they were against. The fact that Josh has this much time to drop back and set up and then pump fake and then go downfield, really good protection. Unfortunately, it wouldn't continue for a variety of reasons throughout this game, but good protection to start out. And also, again, as we go into this theme of what Miami was throwing at Josh Allen, look at what you have there on the line of scrimmage. So you've got 6 on the line of scrimmage. Not all 6 come. You watch Jerome Baker there on the snap. He's directly in the center. He engages with Van Roten. Boom, you highlighted him. He engages, and then he drops back out, right? And then you see different rushes coming. You see the combination with the 2-man game, like you mentioned, on that little twist. You see the 2 kind of almost rat underneath defenders hanging out around the 30, and you see Baker dropping back. This first play of the game, like you said, already they show this pressure look, which would set the tone, because what we're going to show you guys and what we've talked about, they did this constantly. They would show 6, and maybe they'd bring 6, maybe they'd bring 4, but which 4 are going to be coming? How many are dropping out? What kind of game are they playing? What's the coverage on the back end? And it wasn't necessarily overly complicated or completely outmatching the Bills' defensive or offensive line. But what it did, and Erik, you mentioned this, it constantly made Josh have to think and react. The pre to post snap picture from the front to the back of the defense was constantly changing. And by the end of the game, you're mentally and physically exhausted, and mental exhaustion is even more than physical, let alone with what he was doing physically. It was just a tone setter for what Miami was going to go with the entire day.
Yeah, so this is the touchdown, the Devin Singletary inside the 5-yard line here. You see Singletary right here, and I want you to pay attention to him for most of these plays, because what Miami was doing is they were usually sending that zero blitz or blitzer off that edge versus Singletary. And, he's been up and down as a pass blocker, and I thought for this game, he did a good job of initiating contact. It's just hard for him to anchor. I don't think that's going to change based on his size, but I thought he did a good job of, sticking his nose in there. But here, the Dolphins send that guy off the edge, and they totally cut him loose. You see Ingram slant inside. You see that safety, I think it's Brandon Jones, come at Josh Allen. I'm not sure why they cut him loose, but Singletary's cut loose, and he's able to get it out there. Josh is able to get out there for a touchdown. Let's take a look at it from the end zone angle. Again, you see Ingram slant inside, and you see that rusher come. I don't know if this linebacker is supposed to push out wide, but either way, Brandon Roberts is out leveraged here. You see quick pressure from Christian Wilkins right here. Like, look at this on Van Roten here. Quick motion. Boom. Look at that arm over that swim move. And then, but Josh is able to get it out because Motor's the hot guy there, and he gets it to him for the touchdown.
And that's something that Josh did. Josh has the outlet here, but he worked that last year in terms of how much he was pressured. Second most pressures from a volume standpoint in the league last year, 22nd out of the 40 quarterbacks with at least 20% of dropbacks in terms of pressure percentage at 33.3%. But he was last out of those 40 quarterbacks in pressures turn to sacks. He knows where his outlets are. He knows how to navigate the pocket. He knows what to do when he gets pressured, and he IDs Singletary right away, dumps it down. This was a nice play. I was very encouraged by this at the beginning. What we started to notice as the game went on is the Bills kept continuing to go to this look, and Miami eventually adjusted, and this type of free access on the outside to Singletary wasn't there. Miami started floating that second-level defender over the top, and those wide open areas suddenly started to shrink down and squeeze a little bit on Singletary.
Yeah, and this is another play they're able to find Singletary. It's 3rd and 9 at the bottom of the first quarter with the Bills tied up at 7. So 3rd and 9 play, and you saw Knox come across the formation and kind of be that outlet, that blocker, that extra blocker, that 6th blocker, and that's what the Bills were doing. They were sliding the protection one way and bringing either Singletary or Knox across the formation to block the opposite edge. Well, what the Dolphins were doing was they were having the guy that accounts for Singletary either be, to the running back side or in the middle of the field, mugging one of the A gaps. And that's what happens here. So what do the Bills do? They slide their protection and they make it look like Singletary is going to come out here to block Ingram. But instead he slips out, and then you get a nice gain. Doesn't get the first down. He has to cut it back because of the pursuit by the Dolphins was just phenomenal. Yeah. But it sets up a short yardage play. And this is pretty filthy. Like, this is a really nice play.
Yes.
It plays into what they're doing protection wise. It makes it look like they're going to protect, but they're really, slipping Singletary out. If you look from the end zone angle, the guy I have circled right there is the guy that's accounting for Singletary. You see him get into the line of scrimmage and then tries to pop out, and he realizes Singletary slipped out already. Like, that's a pretty sick move by Dorsey, and it was really a nice adjustment. But again, Miami does change later on.
Yeah, this is still early in the game, and this is working. I love the concept and the design too. You and I applauded Ken Dorsey in weeks 1 and week 2 for him setting Josh Allen and this offense up for success. And this is a great counter against Miami. And again, in that theme of what Miami was doing, this time they have 7 on the line. They bring 6. 1 drops out to cover the running back. But if Singletary actually stayed in to block, that unaccounted for defender right there in the center that you have circled, Brandon Jones, he is going to sit there and he might green dog and come on the blitz. Maybe he hovers around and spies Josh Allen, but you're at the very least getting 6 coming forward. You might get 7 if Singletary stays in the block. You even see there Brandon Jones engages Van Roten. Yep. Which is, again, is another beautiful piece. If you're the defense, like, you engage that guy, drop off into coverage. What have you created? A free rusher on the edge. So from Miami's perspective, We got the advantage. We have a free rusher in Melvin Ingram bearing down on Josh Allen. Best case scenario for Buffalo, because they went with a full slide to the left, best case scenario is Devin Singletary has to pick up Ingram. If you're Miami, you're taking that matchup all day, but Dorsey accounted for it. Dawkins is trying to block two separate guys. They have another runner coming from the left side in addition to the free runner Ingram on the right, but it all gets nullified because of this play design, making it look like Singletary is going to pick up and be a blocker. Instead, he free releases, Josh dumps it over the top, and again, a nice little easy gain to continue to stay ahead of the sticks.
Yeah, I liked that adjustment by Dorsey on that play.
And it was it's a good game plan thing coming in. Like, Miami, it was talked about coming into this game, like how much Miami is changing as a defense this year because Flores isn't there. So how much cover 2 or how much cover 0 are they going to keep with Boyer as the defensive coordinator? You don't really want to blitz Josh Allen, so on and so forth. But Miami went with a lot of cover 0 on Halloween last year in the second meeting with Buffalo. And they gave them problems up until the middle of the third quarter when the Bills just started spamming the Cole Beasley versus Nick Needham matchup in those one-on-ones. So Miami was confident with their game plan. Dorsey anticipated it early, and he had answers.
Yeah, and this is a play I might have skipped over by accident. This is the third and 8 strip sack that happened in the first quarter. It was the play we were supposed to
I hate it, but I love it.
Yeah. And so you see Knox come across the formation here, and he tried to pick up the safety, Brandon Jones there, but it's Holland that makes a play off the left side here. Again, that cover 0 type look. His speed was phenomenal. I think he got to Josh Allen in like 2.1 seconds, but Josh kind of played into it by the way he dropped in the pocket here.
He moves to it.
Yeah. So the line is sliding to the left, and you're having Knox come across, pick up 29, Brandon Jones. Singletary, I think, is more of a scan here. He's scanning. I think he's scanning probably his man Baker or even this guy that inserts who's covering Knox. But either way, it's 8 versus 7. You see Holland do a good job of cross-chopping Dawkins' hand here on the outside right there. Just pushes him by. Dawkins' feet are behind him, and Singletary's not able to kind of set that edge there. And then Josh, look where he starts to snap. The snap's on the hash. He drifts to the left because he feels like the overload's coming from this way, but really the speed is coming from that way. So he drifts to his left, and it just helps Holland get there so much quicker. He gets stripped, and Ingram is really Josh Allen's nemesis all game, and ever since Josh has been in the league, recovers the fumble there. So you saw this play, and it's like, man, like you're backed up. This is not what you want. And then, of course, they had run it twice. One of them was an RPO, but they ran it twice to Moss to lead into this third and 8. It just wasn't a good drive, a drive that Dorsey did try to get the run game going, as we talked about, but it didn't work out well. And Josh drifts right into this strip sack.
And the situation, like you mentioned, is so unfortunate because you go down, you score on your first possession, you go up 7-0, you force Miami to punt, and then you give them the ball inside the red zone to start their next drive. I talked about Josh Allen. Jack combined Josh Allen and Javon Holland. I talked about Javon Holland and Brandon Jones on Disguise Coverage last week. They're such a fun safety pairing because of how they can play everywhere, but especially Holland. You'll watch him line up as the post safety, a split safety, in the slot, in the box. He'll fit the run. He'll blitz. He's a really tremendous player who's really started to come into his own in his second year and comes off the edge. That's just unreal. Like the cross chop on Dawkins, like that's a legitimate like pass rush move. Yeah. And it's so fluid and so smooth. And I also wanted to tie it into something that happens later in this game. Miami shows a very similar look to this later in the game but instead of 8 at the line of scrimmage, they've got 7. And Holland is that end man on the line. No, I'm sorry, they have 6. And Holland's the end man on the line. Very similar to this. And he shows blitz. And instead of blitzing, he screams back as the post safety in a cover 3 look. Yes, like I just wanted to like start to get everybody's brains like churning for that. Yeah. Think about this look in this strip sack. I feel like it's burned into a lot of Bills fans' brains. Think about this look. Think about what Javon Holland does. And then remember this play when we show what he does later as an example of how Miami continues to show Josh Allen similar looks, but then bring different plays out of it to continue to change the pre to post snap picture and tax him mentally.
Yeah, and so this is a 4th down later in I think this is the top of the second quarter. 4th and 2 situation here.
Yes, it is.
And so again, you saw those cover zero looks, those pressure looks. Here's another one of those type of looks. You can see everyone up near the line of scrimmage. It's 4th and 2. Josh gets the alert, and they're in a quad set to the bottom of the screen, but they're going to try to do like that RPO where they swing it to the Singletary, and you have Gabriel Davis blocking down, but you see these guys all flow to Singletary, so he's got nothing. And this was any other quarterback, maybe a couple other quarterbacks could do this, but Josh Allen is able to break the tackle of Zach Sealer, defensive tackle there on 4th and 2. So again, they're taxing him mentally pre and post snap, and they're doing a good job post snap here of taking away that swing route, forcing Josh to keep it. He has to keep it, and then watch the move by this guy right here. Watch him get in on Josh Allen on this play, get a piece of him, but Josh braces for contact here.
Runs through him.
Yeah, and he runs through that tackle right there. I mean, good Lord. Like, not many quarterbacks are going to do that. Protects the ball, and he's able to convert the first down. So, taxing him mentally and physically, but Josh was up to the task. He converted this 4th and 2 play.
Yes, and for reference, Zach Sealer is listed at 6'6", 305 pounds, number 92 right there. Quarterbacks shouldn't be running through the shoulder of a 6'6", 305 pound defensive tackle. But again, credit to Sealer for getting in clean and getting right in on Allen in a hurry. Like Miami, like you said, they had this play scouted. You see Riley immediately, number 45, fast flow over to Singletary.
Yeah.
They bring the blitz off the edge with Brandon Jones. Like, this play should be dead to rights. Josh can't escape to his right because Wilkins has that angle like you highlighted. Phillips and Brandon Jones, maybe, because they're both rushing through the same gap. That's problematic, but still, you get a clean shot for the most part on the quarterback. This is Josh Allen just making a play and playing above the scheme. The problem is he continued to have to play above the scheme, play after play after play after play. Yeah. And whether it was that in combination with the heat or just because of the heat, whatever have you, they made Josh Allen have to continue to beat them. And eventually at some point he just wore down, which is why I don't want to say too much of this episode, but I'm probably going to continue why you need the effing running game. It's not about running for volume. You need to have the threat to just be able to take some of the workload and pressure off of Josh Allen. And, you can't ask him to be Batman on every single play. It's just not possible.
Yeah. And so we're going to move on to this deep shot to McKenzie. And this isn't one of those cover zero looks, but this is Bills are now tied 7-7, 2nd and 19. So 2nd and 19, top of the second quarter. And this is that deep over out by McKenzie from the slot.
Oh,
and
beautiful.
Again, not the zero look, but they bring the 5th rusher late. And this pass from Josh Allen was just flawless. Duke Riley's coming right down Broadway on him, and he's able to hang in there under duress. And then just watch the placement of this throw. You see Duke Riley's number 45 right there, right down the middle. And then there's the touch throw. And then watch how he drops it right into the hands. Boom. Like right on the hands of McKenzie with really good coverage, really good trail technique. So much so that guy almost raked it out at the end. Like, that is just a dime from Josh Allen here. Again, that delayed rush. So yes, this is still a blitz here. But Josh hung in there and delivered this big play on 2nd and 19.
Off his back foot with pressure in his face. And so you have the defender and trail technique. Xavier Howard also comes off his man when he sees Josh start to load and make the throw. So Howard is on the bottom on Diggs there. You'll watch as Josh makes the throw. Boom. Yep, there you go. Howard sees it, does a great job. He's in man coverage. He peels off. So he has a chance at the ball, but not really because of the ball placement from Josh Allen. Just, again, drifting off his back foot, pressure in his face, gets knocked down, absolute pinpoint precision throw. Miami, one of the few times in this game, maybe like a handful, 3 or 4 that they were in cover one in this example. And Holland is that post safety deep. He's playing for the deep shot. McKenzie runs that over. If anybody and everybody who watched the game in New England last year should know that this was basically just what happened over and over again, whether it was cover 1 or cover 3, these deep overs to McKenzie. Absolute beautiful ball from Josh Allen. Good route from McKenzie too. And again, highlighting, you mentioned what Miami did there, that delayed rush from Duke Riley. Another example of them showing something similar, mugging the A-gaps, then dropping back, Then coming forward, again, another kind of pressure look from another kind of pressure play from a similar pressure look, continuing to make Josh always have to think and always have to recognize and adjust after the ball is snapped.
Yeah. And McKenzie, we're going to continue with McKenzie here. It's same drive, 3rd and 8 call here. This is his touchdown from the 8-yard line. And I love this play from the beginning because initially they come out of the huddle and Josh sees that cover 0 look. He sees a bunch of guys mugging the gaps. This is a 3-by-1 set. And it seemed like a lot of their cover 0 looks came when the Bills were in 3-by-1 sets with, tight end or wide receiver to the isolated side here. And then the running back as well. Josh sees this. This is the guy that's covering Knox. He says, you know what? Let's bring you guys in. Let's max protect this up. I like my three guys to the field side here. If they're going to bring a blitz, I like the matchup out there and the space and have these guys come. I want to max protect it. So they do. McKenzie is right here in the slot. He's just running that little under route over the middle. And Josh gets enough time to deliver this ball to McKenzie over the middle. We'll take a look at it from the end zone angle. So you're going to see from Saffold on, they're going to slide to the right there. So by bringing, those guys in, Knox and Singletary, it allows them to max protect and bring in a couple more blockers, obviously. So you see the Dolphins start to set up their rush. And so you get the slide here, one-on-one, Dawkins and Ingram. Knox is on his guy, and then Singletary is on his guy. That's kind of the way it broke down. And Josh has just enough time to get this off right here. And you can see him just get it up and over 93, who's a free rusher. He's not in the passing lane. You see Baker pop out, but McKenzie's speed, he's already by him. And Josh is able to hit McKenzie for the easy touchdown. This is what gets teams out of those cover 0 looks. When you get free runners like that and those crossers to the middle of the field, that's what the Bills needed to do. Either when they saw those cover 0 looks, they got to get these quick plays over the middle to their speedy receivers, some, screens. And then we'll talk about some of the other, passes to Diggs to kind of offset that. But this is what you got to do. Quick plays over the middle of the field to guys like McKenzie.
Yeah. And you hinted at, Miami using cover 0 looks in certain situations, especially versus the 3-by-1s. They also loved using them on 3rd down or in situations where they had like a defined marker to go to, like, oh, it's 3rd and 8, cool, cover 0, and our corners are going to sit right at the sticks at 8 yards. Here they're in the red zone, so their set position or the mark that they're aiming for is that goal line. But this is the risk that you run when you run cover 0. Obviously, you've got man coverage on the back end, you have limited coverage, and this is just a miscommunication by the Dolphins. You can see that the slot defender over Singletary, he starts to stick his arm out and he points for a push for that defender to come down and pick up McKenzie and slice on McKenzie so that way he can pick up Diggs. But honestly, even if that middle safety, if he slices down on McKenzie, I think then Diggs Diggs is going to beat that inside defender. So no matter what they do, they're done here because they don't pass this off correctly. And exactly what you said, like this is what gets teams out of those looks because it's a high risk, high reward type of defense. And this time the risk got them. They blow coverage and it's an easy 6.
Yeah, that was nice to see again, because going into this game, especially the first play, like, oh, cover 0 looks. And then you saw it a bunch of times. And then it took a minute to kind of adjust and start slipping Singletary out. And then they're like, okay, the Bills have a plan at least in place. And so then when you saw that, we're like, okay, he's got his footing. And that's why he ended so well against the blitz. But
yes, and you were thinking like, okay, they anticipated, okay, like here's the package we're going to go to if we start to see cover 0. And then they basically hit on all cylinders the first several times. And it really instilled confidence just for the rug to be pulled out from under us.
Yeah, and this was another adjustment. So like in the past, when teams like the Dolphins, especially the Dolphins, when they were going to these cover 0 looks, the Bills would throw that gold whip, gold rip, gold disco, gold pirate. Like there were so many names for it, but it was their audible for a tunnel screen. And it was, remember, John Brown lit it up that year. Gabriel Davis got it a few times. Like that was their audible. Now they kind of slipped Singletary out a couple times. But this was one that they started to do. So 2nd and 2 situation, the score is 14-14. We're halfway through the second quarter. And what they started doing was they started saying, okay, you're in those cover 0 looks. Here comes Holland down to the running back side versus this quad set. The defense sets. And they say, okay, look how far off these guys are. Yeah, Howard's on Diggs right here. But look how far off he is. They said, okay, well, what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of like run an RPO. So they're going to pull Dawkins this way, get the running back going this way. And what they're going to try to do is just get it to Diggs right here. And he's got leverage and a hat on a hat out wide. But look at how much Josh has to work to get this past Holland. Again, a phenomenal safety. One of the better safeties now in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Look at him have to double pump because he's in that passing lane. And then drops it down, throws it sidearm right there to get it to Diggs on 2nd and 2. And Diggs is able to get upfield. So this was one of their adjustments to those cover zero looks. But it still made Allen have to work for this pass.
That's the biggest takeaway on this play for me. One, I like the adjustment and, going with that, quick kind of screen look and taking advantage of the space and the cover zero action there. But yeah, like this in theory should be a simple, okay, cool. That's where we're going. Snap the ball, pass it. Everything was just, the dials were turned up in difficulty for here. Like Josh not only has to pump, then he has to change his arm angle and kind of like throw this ball around Javon Holland to get it to fit to Diggs on something that should be easy. This happened later in the game as well. Jalen Phillips almost came down with an interception on the play like this because he has more size than Holland coming off the edge on that quick kind of throw action in that way. But again, it's just another example of, even when Josh Allen was succeeding, like this is a successful play for the Bills. You're looking at this play and saying, boom, that's a win. But it took so much to get that win. And when you add them all up, they all add up and it starts to wear you down.
Yeah, and this is where it started to get fun and wild. So top of the third quarter here, 1st and 10 situation, Bills have the ball on their 12-yard line here. And so they're showing a pressure look. Here comes Holland down. They're showing that cover zero look
This
here.
is the one.
Yeah, and so watch what happens. So they're showing all these guys up near the line of scrimmage here. And then what happens when the ball is snapped? And here's the route combination. And so, again, what they did in the first half was like, hey, we're just going to slide the offensive line and sneak Singletary out to the field. And we'll be, in good graces again, like that play on 3rd down in the first half. But what Miami does here after the snap is drop out into cover 3. And this is Holland. This is what Anthony was talking about. Holland becomes the post safety.
That's amazing.
This is stuff like the Ravens do. I mean, we're going to see this probably again. Like they would make their safeties do this from depth and, at the line of scrimmage and push all the way to the post. That's what Holland does here. So think about this, guys. Josh Allen's like cover zero look. I need to get rid of the ball. The Singletary. He's the guy. He's the hot with all these rushers coming, but they drop out and only 4 come. But because the line is sliding to their right, this guy's unaccounted for, right? And so he has immediate pressure on Josh, and Josh just gets rid of it to Singletary there, and they're in zone. So even if Singletary catches this, he's not going to get anything. So this was such a wicked adjustment by the Dolphins, and, they can only do that because they have Holland, but this zero bluff really, threw a wrench in some things in the second half.
Yeah, you've got 6 Dolphins defenders like hard on the line of scrimmage, and then the defender you have circled is in a super wide alignment, but is effectively the 7th defender on this line of scrimmage. So again, like you said, cover zero look, just like they showed how many times in this game, 7-man lines or 6-man fronts, and just bringing these blitz combinations. And now you get caught exactly like he said. They slide to the right. Phillips, because of his wide alignment, is basically a free rusher unimpeded right on Josh Allen. And even if Singletary leaks out scot-free like he did for the touchdown, like he did later in the first half for that 6 or 7 yard gain that we showed, this time it's not there anymore. This time they float that second level defender. Jerome Baker is over there. He sees it. There's nowhere for Devin Singletary to go, even if he catches this ball. And I still can't get over Javon Holland on this play. Like he gets into position, like good. Like if Allen tries to hit that slot receiver, Holland's in position to make a play on this ball because of the angle that he takes to Stephon Diggs. Like he eyes his man up immediately. He knows what his responsibility is. Brandon Jones is buzzing down underneath. He's the apex defender there on the 20-yard line. So he picks up Knox. Everybody is in position. This is a well-crafted design and adjustment based off of what the Dolphins saw in the first half. And again, like just putting Josh Allen into scenarios where we're showing A, but we might not be running A. We might be running B or C or D, which means Josh Allen, when he sees A, now he starts to have to go, you know what? Okay, it looks like A, but I don't really know if it's going to be A, B, C, or D. So let me snap the ball and have to figure it out and then have to execute. And they made him do that over and over and over. This is one of those plays. I know the Heat and the injuries coming into the game and the injuries that happen in the game and everything and anything in between. This is one of those ones where you tip your cap to the Dolphins because this was a good Jedi mind trick and a good mental game and physical execution.
And this route combination versus this single high cover 3 look, this route combination to the bottom is not a bad look. This is the Haas concept. So you get a seam route by Knox and then a like stop or curl route from McKenzie. And normally, if he's reading this properly, if and they don't spin in this way, usually Josh his eyes would be over here looking at McKenzie, and then you got an easy pitch and catch for McKenzie. And who knows after that, I know Josh is looking to the top of the screen. He wants to go to Singletary. He would press it here. You would have a guy deep here and then Holland over the top. So a lot of people were asking, like, why didn't they take these shots deep? It's because of this the post-snap processing and how the defense spun to these coverages. And they got Josh Allen to look to one side and think that, hey, they're in this coverage. And really, he could have been looking to the other side. But in the end, the pass protection wasn't going to hold to push the ball down the field because the Dolphins attacked it in that manner. They knew they were getting that slide out of that cover 0 bluff, and they got that slide. And if Singletary's going to leak out, well, guess what? They got the free rusher. There's no way Josh is going to be able to push it down the field to any of those deeper routes down the field. And so, again, you're right. Tip the cap to the defensive coordinator, Boyer, of the Dolphins.
And one more quick point on that last one. That's one of those advantages, something that we've talked about with simulated pressures. The Bills do it all the time. You basically you can create a free rusher and dictate protection to the offense by showing a look. And you're still, because you're only rushing 4 and you're dropping 7. That's why a simulated pressure is like the quote unquote safe form of pressure, because you're kind of creating a blitz look or the opportunity for a free rusher while not having to commit more than 4 rushers. So you still have the coverage numbers and the math advantage in coverage, but you have the opportunity to really confuse things up front. So simulated pressures in and of themselves are a really fun piece for defenses now, especially when you really get it cooking like that.
Yeah, and this Dilly says teams will for sure copycat this. Yeah, they might. I think we'll see it from the Ravens, but like not many teams have a Javon Holland or Brandon
You still
Jones.
Need the horses to be able to run it.
And this is their identity. This is the Dolphins. Like they practice this stuff every day, every week, and they use it every game. So this is their bread and butter. Not every team does this. Some may have a few plays, cover 0 plays, but these type of plays are their defense. It's not something that they're just throwing in for a specific matchup. This is their identity. So yeah, they may, but as they said, that's fine. They can. Josh did really well for the most part versus these type of looks. That was just a good disguise. He thought pressure was coming. Pressure wasn't, but the protection was still beaten. So on this play, this is a simulated pressure here. So you got several guys up the middle. Yeah, appreciate that comment, man. He's always in the comments to always saying great things about us. We appreciate it. This is a play we're going to see 2 similar plays like this. Another wicked spin by the defense here. So you see several guys mugging the A gaps up front. And then you're going to see the corner to the bottom of the screen. He's going to blitz, and then you're going to see the safety right here. He's going to replace him. And all they're doing is spinning to a Tampa 2 look. So they're sending this guy off the edge. Cook does a good job of recognizing it and picking him up. But it's still a zone coverage here. They're still getting it to a Tampa 2 look here. And it's just a really good simulated pressure here from the Dolphins. And Josh stands in the pocket, gets a little pressure, but he's waiting for this guy to get to the middle of the field. The middle of the field's open, but Crowder, for some reason, hangs in the window behind Ingram with Baker closing in. That's his assignment. It's very much like the play that Waddle got for, behind the Bills there.
Where Edmonds picked up Hill on that deep hook. Yeah.
So here comes Baker into that deep, that middle hole there. And Josh is like, dude, run to the middle, the middle of the field, keep pushing down the field. Instead, he's got to get rid of it, and then Baker's able to make a play. But I like this play, Anthony, because I'm going to take it to the next one. I like this rotation. This is a sick rotation, changing there to, out of that simulated pressure, but still only sending 4 guys there. But it plays big on this play right here, Anthony, right? Like this is the same type of coverage, and this is what I want to call the Nickel City Cigars light up, throw the game for me. This is for me, Anthony. This is for me. For me, because I'm going to save yours for later. Because you have one that that we both liked, but I will say I'll leave that one to you. So this is 3rd and 4, guys. Same exact coverage here. 3rd and 4 situation here, and you see them again show pressure up near the line of scrimmage, then drop out, bring the corner from the bottom of the screen here, spin those safeties, and Josh immediately wants to go to Diggs. Like, he wants to go to Diggs right here. It's a good sight adjustment. You see Diggs just sit there. And so he wants to throw it to him, but guess what? This guy's in the passing lane. Here comes the hook the curl linebacker right here. And then here comes the spinning safety down to replace the corner. So Josh can't necessarily get it to Diggs, but instead of Morris running that seam route like you saw in the last play, he breaks it off to the corner here. And this throw from Josh Allen was just bonkers. Look at him reload.
Unreal.
Basically terrible base and mechanics on this play, but he's able to float it up and over the top of this guy to Morris for the first down. So 3rd and 4 situation, similar pressure. And this corner blitz, Anthony, they ran that several times coming right out of the half. Yes. Josh Allen saw this like 2 or 3 times, and he's able to hit the smash concept to Morris behind him for my Nickel City light up throw of the game. Like, these are the type of plays where, hey, if you have a stogie from Nickel City, light it up now, because that was one hell of a throw.
Yeah, this is an example of similar to, a lot of plays from this game by Josh Allen, but similar to that run where he runs through Sealer on that quarterback keeper where he gets pressure up the middle. Like, sometimes your guy just makes a play and he's the best guy on the field and he plays above the scheme. And this is a good call from Miami, bringing the corner from the boundary side makes it easier for that safety to spin down and go into that cloud type of look underneath. And I like right here, like that freeze frame, whether you did it or not on purpose, I don't care. I'm going to take advantage of it. Well played. Like, this is not an easy throw. So you've got the corner bearing down on you from the outside. You've got that second level defender in the window. So you have to layer this throw over that second level defender, fit it in between maybe that safety who spun down is that cloud coverage underneath. Maybe he's sinking underneath. Guess what? He is. And then the safety, Javon Holland, is coming in over the top. So you have to layer it over that second level defender, fit it into that honey hole a little bit between 2 athletic players in Brandon Jones and Javon Holland. And again, to your point, look, how Josh Allen made this play, like, this play is awesome, right? Like, what an amazing throw. You don't show this to kids who are trying to play quarterback. This is not teach tape. This is not how your body should be. This is not where your feet should be. This is, arm talent for the positives, and arm arrogance for the detractors, or whatever anybody likes to say. Like, this is just an amazing throw that probably should not happen from a base and a platform that is not ideal against a coverage designed to play games with you, like what we just saw. But, sometimes you got a cheat code to an amazing thing, and Josh Allen was the cheat code on this play.
Yeah, it was just ridiculous. That throw is just
throw is stupid. Like good stupid. We said that. Yeah. We said that once. And remember, somebody came in and was like, "I don't know why you guys are insulting all these plays." And we're like, "No, we mean stupid, like good."
Yeah. And here's another zero blitz here. This is where they actually got Josh Allen. But they had a good call here out wide. But you see this defender, I think it's Ogba, gets in the passing lane, so Josh doesn't throw it. He ends up taking the sack there. So this is one of those plays, one of the 2 sacks I think they got when they did blitz. But really, Josh could have gotten rid of this, but he just ate it. He didn't want to risk an interception. As you said, Phillips got his hands on one before when they tried running these type of screens and these answers versus those zero looks. But I just wanted to show you that. That was one of their 2 sacks. But here's another one. This was a big play right here, Anthony. 3rd and 10 situation, 4th quarter. The Bills are down 21-17, 7:48 on the clock. And this is that little floater to Motor Singletary. And I want you guys to look at this play. There's really not much to really go off of here. There's really no one to throw to here except for Singletary. Josh gets that edge right there. He's able to get outside of Ingram, and then he just floats it to Singletary for a big play down the field to move the chains.
This one got my wife off the couch, and she swore when she saw it because of how good of a throw it was when she saw it live. And then she even came back to sit and watch it on the replay. Again, good concept and blitz design from Miami. They stunt inside a little bit and create havoc, and Phillips loops around from that B gap all the way into the other A gap inside Manx. Allen sees it and is immediately like, nah, I don't want any parts of this. I'm rolling out. And again, this is 3rd and 10. This bothered me too because the broadcast was like, oh, I think Trent Green was like, Josh Allen probably could have run for the first down. No, he could not have. Between Ingram and the second level defender bearing down on him, Allen could not run. And Allen knew that in the moment. This is part of why I saw some people bringing up sugar high Josh Allen
what was that?
People narratives, man.
Sugar high? What are you talking about? That was not the case for Josh Allen.
No. Sugar high Josh Allen. Some that talked about the composure of this team or the composure of Allen in certain moments. The composure and the poise on this play, because the easy sugar high lack of composure play.
He's running it.
Correct. Would have been, screw it. I'm just going to get what I can get. Let's play for 4 and 5.
We talked about it all night, Anthony. Like, okay, if he lacked composure, if he went to sugar high Josh Allen, he wouldn't have been as good as he was pre and post snap versus all these pressure and blitzes and the terrible offense. Like, stop it. Like, I don't know who's saying that. Like, that's just nonsense. That's nonsense.
Can you imagine the sugar high Josh Allen trying to adjust to the pre to post snap picture change and all these looks and all the processing and still come on.
Sugar high Josh Allen was like Green Bay Packers his first year where he was seeing ghosts when these type of looks were coming at him. Like, stop. That's gone. That's gone. Josh has harnessed that.
Yes, this is calm, poised, collected Josh Allen. And again, sugar high Josh Allen here, or lack of composure Josh Allen, whatever verbiage or phrasing you want to go with here, he would have run this ball. Yeah. Instead, he keeps his eyes downfield like he has, like we talked about earlier this year in the film room when we talked about how he extends plays for explosives and keeps his eyes downfield. Again, it's the mental standpoint, the poise, the calm, the cool, how collected he is. But then the ball placement he drops this in the bucket. Yeah. Again, a lot shorter than the throw to Isaiah McKenzie on the deep over versus cover one that we showed earlier. Cover one, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But the pinpoint, just a little flick, puts it right over Byron Jones, perfectly in stride to Devin Singletary, hits him right in the hands. Like, again, it's the throw is awesome, but for me, it was the mental, calm, cool, and how collected he was to execute that. No, this is you making the adjustment post-snap, recognizing what's happening, knowing the situation, and making a play. No sugar high. Like, don't do that.
Yeah, and even this play where he missed McKenzie, we're going to critique it right here. 4th and 2 situation, 1:49 on the clock in the fourth quarter. Bills are obviously driving. And this is a play that kind of got away from Josh Allen. And this wasn't because he was in sugar high mode. This was simply just bad mechanics, bad sequencing. Okay, so they get that switch release to the top, a nice little rub concept, and McKenzie runs to the pylon. But I want you to watch the sequencing of Josh Allen's body here. And you can see it's right there. His feet are already wide, and he wanted to throw it right there. But he doesn't. He kind of cocks it back, and now his base is terrible. His base is terrible right there. Now this is just all arm, but he can still make these throws. But he just didn't have enough on this play. You can see front leg locks out. That's a big no-no for him, and he throws it into the dirt. So, yeah, this was a play Josh would love to have back, but it's not because of sugar high. It was just bad mechanics at a time where this was probably what, the 80th play of the game?
Oh,
again, from all the taxing mentally done to him and physically. And so, yeah, late in the game, this became an issue. And that's why we said you got to do some things to offset and, set the add to the balance of the offense. You can't have him drop back 73 times because he's going to be exhausted, especially in this heat. And that's why this sequencing was bad right there. And it's just totally off. And he doesn't allow him to, rotate through and become that rotational passer that he has been. He throws it in the dirt, and the Bills don't get 6.
This was, for reference, this was on the drive. This was the 17th play of a 17-play, 73-yard, 8-minute, and 19-second drive, where the heavy majority of it was all Josh Allen running and processing and throwing and evading pressure and processing and throwing and running and evading pressure. So, no, not giving him a pass. You got to make this throw. You can't have the mechanics affect you like this, but it's understandable to a degree given the circumstances. And yeah, you highlight Christian Wilkins, who again had a monster of a game. He comes free, scot-free up the middle. No, obviously miscommunication up front. Mm-hmm. Singletary has to pick him up, which is a horrible mismatch, a big-time advantage Dolphins. And then I like how you highlighted Agba on the outside versus Doyle, because you see it here.
Doyle versus Doyle. Hello.
Not great.
Come on. Doyle was playing, guys.
It's just, it's not the matchup that you want to have and you want to see. I was again, and not only is Doyle playing, he's playing at guard. And you saw it on the sideline angle, and as well as this one, Agba is kind of in that throwing lane a little bit. And I think that alters Josh's throw here as well, because he tries to change his arm angle mid-throw, which is a big no-no. Yeah, boom, you see it on this one. Like,
it could have been why he kind of like double pumped there, double faked that.
That's exactly, again, this is me just completely reading into it. I don't know this for a fact, but I think he double clutched because he sees Agba flash. Literally, think about it. If you're staring at McKenzie right now, right? If you're Josh Allen, all of a sudden you see a flash of color come across your face and enter your peripherals and come in straight dead center into your face. It's going to change. And look where he throws. You can almost see him trying to like long arm and put this around Agba instead of putting it on a rope on McKenzie. I think he tries to adjust his arm angle mid-throw, and that's part of the reason why he dirts it. But again, not great mechanics. Kudos to Miami for getting the pressure and kind of forcing him a little into dirting this throw, but definitely one that he should have made and one that he knows he should have made.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's a great point, man. That Agba flashing, that opposite color jersey flashing there, it was pretty big for that throw. It kind of caused him to kind of pull it back and not make the proper throw. So with that said, we're going to end on a good note. We're going to end on one hell of a play here. This was your Nickel City light up.
My light up.
Yeah, this is your light up. So I'm going to let you break it down. I'm done talking. I'll let you roll with it on 2nd and 10 here.
Wouldn't it be funny if I didn't know what play it was? I'm just kidding. I know what play it is. You and I talked about these. So again, as we kind of put the episodes together for the film room, Erik and I go back and forth on, some, different ideas and topics. And so we had the Quintin Moore's completion earlier, and we had this one. And Erik brought these in and was like, which one should be 1? Which one should be 2? He had Morris as the first one as his number 1. This was my number 1. For me, it's the degree of difficulty and the throw on the run. So he gets pressure. He hitches up into the pocket. And then, as you highlighted there, sees what's going on in front of him. So he darts through the gap. But notice how when he goes through, he gets horizontal and he stays flat. He doesn't cross the line. Exactly. He keeps himself open to the opportunity of throwing downfield by not crossing the line of scrimmage. Then he gets square to the line. This is dumb. This is dumb in a good way. This is so stupid. Wow. He's falling away left. His momentum is carrying him left. He's running left. He opens up his hips and his shoulder a little bit and flicks this ball in between 3 defenders to Gabriel Davis. And I don't think this was an accident. Look at the ball location. He puts it up high so Davis can go and get it, partially because he has to loft it and layer it over that underneath defender. You highlighted the 3 defenders there. They are like, we talk about coverage all the time and box coverage and 4/3. This is a 3/1. This should not be a completion. This is like Barcelona triangle soccer football type thing, perfect triangles. Like, this should not be a completion. One, he steps up to evade Agba's rush on the outside on Quisenberry, steps up into the pocket, escapes, keeps his eyes downfield, gets his body in position to make this throw, and then while running left, manages to open up his body and get enough on this throw to drop it right in between 3 Dolphin defenders, pinpoint to Gabriel Davis. This was, again, part of the reason why it was my light up. 1, it's an amazing play for all the reasons I mentioned. 2, another example. If you're looking on the box score, you're seeing this and you're like, oh, completion and first down Bills. But everything that Josh Allen had to do on this play to make this happen, again, like we keep saying, it adds up, it weighs on you so much. He had to do so much to just get simple first downs in this game. And that's why I also picked this play too. I thought it was a really good microcosm of that aspect of this game.
Yeah, it's funny when I posted that on Twitter, I had a lot of fans, not just Bills. It went viral. So a lot of other fans were commenting on it, and they were saying, okay, that's why he's the best quarterback in the league right now. Like, how he made it look like he was going to dart out the right side of the pocket, but then cut back to his left, again, get his hips square, and then high point it across the body in the opposite direction. Like, it was just filthy. It was filthy. So I understood why it was your throw of the game, light up play of the game. But with that said, as you guys saw, like, the Dolphins defense did a great job of, mentally and physically battering Josh Allen from the shoulders up and physically. And Josh still did his. He still cooked, but it took a toll when you're talking the grand scheme of things, 90 plays, Anthony, but I thought he did well enough. And the Bills were in that game and had a chance to win that game because of Josh Allen. That was not an average performance. I don't know where that narrative's coming from, but that was not average. That was a pretty phenomenal performance based on what the Dolphins defense, especially that coordinator, Boyer, did one hell of a job from top to bottom, from the first play to the last play of the game.
I think if you're looking at this game in a vacuum and you look at, okay, you had 90 plays and 40 minutes of possession and you only had 19 points and you dirted that throw, like you should have had more, so on and so forth. Again, that's not even taking into account the great play by the Dolphin corner on that Gabriel Davis, kind of drop touchdown. The Bills were only in this game offensively because of Josh Allen. The entire offensive performance was Josh Allen. His legs, his arm, and like you said, and like we've continued to say, his brain and his mind. Miami put him through the ringer in this game physically and mentally. And, it worked out for him in the end. But yeah, I heard that from a couple people that Josh Allen wasn't good enough in this game. And I get where that can come from because they lost and he missed a couple plays. But they were only in this game because Josh Allen took this team and put him into his backpack to get him to the spot.
And relatively, if you look at it, again, through the film and what they were doing to Josh Allen, many quarterbacks would have been completely lost versus some of those looks. This is a divisional opponent. They know the Bills' offense, especially.
They wanted this game.
This is, it just – a lot of quarterbacks would not have had – damn near 500 yards and a couple touchdowns.
Yeah.
If they had done a few better play calls in the red zone, if Josh would have, hit that play where Og was flashing into his peripheral, like there are a couple plays where 3 or 4 plays were like, okay, that would have won the Gabriel Davis. But you can't hang on to that. Hey, Dolphins, tip a cap to them. They did a great job, but Josh didn't lose that game by any means.
No. And I think that's where the balance comes in for a lot of Bills fans. I think it's fair to recognize all the injuries and the heat and, how Josh played and so on and so forth. Like we've highlighted many times this episode, you got to tip your cap to the Dolphins for the game plan, for the execution. Maybe, again, I don't like to do, well, if so-and-so, because there's no guarantees, maybe with a healthier offensive line and healthier periphery weapons, we see more points and more efficiency and more execution. But the Dolphins came in with a game plan, and their game plan was basically make life as hard as effing possible for Josh Allen. They did it. They got the win. Allen still played great despite everything that Miami did. That's what actually, despite the fact that we talked about how much more work it takes in a loss, and also because you have to watch the film from a loss, which sucks. But that's what made watching this film really exciting from the Bills offense versus the Miami defense. Because of that chess match, it really felt like a heavyweight type of fight. You made the joke earlier with like a Rocky movie or like a Looney Tunes cartoon with the boxing and the rounds. This was kind of like Josh Allen felt like Rocky at times, just trying to slug it through all these rounds and take a beating. And the Dolphins were like Drago, and it was just back and forth and back and forth. Dolphins got the advantage. We'll see what happens come December. Hopefully the Bills are healthier, but yeah. Good performance from Allen. Good for Miami.
Speaking of health, especially on the defensive side. So some news dropped in the chat a little while ago. Quick transition. We'll talk about that real quick. So Xavier Rhodes, he was brought in on a visit, and apparently we're hearing that he was signed. So what are your initial thoughts? I know you reached out to some Colts creators and get their thoughts on him.
So I have my own thoughts on Xavier Rhodes. Just from how his time finished in Minnesota and then being with Colts the last couple of years. But just to confirm, I reached out to Rashad McGinnis, my boy over there, who now works for SB Nation, writes for Stampede Blue, covering the Colts. And I asked him unprompted earlier this morning, I said, morning, what are your thoughts on Xavier Rhodes from last year and who he is? And he said, man, he looked really good the first year with the Colts, like he was in prime form. But last season, he fell off a cliff. But he dealt with an injury all season that nobody wanted to talk about, but he never got back to himself. At this stage, he struggles with speed and route technicians, but he's okay as long as he's covering bigger receivers, which also fit into my overall evaluation when I don't think he's prime Minnesota Vikings Xavier Rhodes. I don't think anybody should think he's that. He's a veteran corner. He's physical. He offers you a good matchup against bigger body receivers. I think he can function in zone. He's got plenty of familiarity with Leslie Frazier. I also think what's interesting, this was also tweeted at me too. him playing with Matt Eberflus in Indianapolis, but then Eberflus went to Chicago. They are bereft of corner talent. No contact was made to potentially bring in Rhodes, so maybe Eberflus was out because of his performance. I think there's a lot of variables, free agency, so on and so forth. At the end of the day, the Bills need corner depth. They are walking wounded at that cornerback position. I think they could do a lot worse. Who knows? Maybe you got a diamond in the rough like Rasul Douglas from last year. If you're expecting Xavier Rhodes to be all pro, Minnesota Vikings Xavier Rhodes, that's not what you're going to get. I think he provides you functional depth. At the worst, he gives you somebody you can start and fill in over these next 2-3 weeks as you get healthy.
Yeah, again, Eberflus's system is very similar to what Leslie Frazier ran. Yep. Obviously, he played for Frazier as well years ago. But last year, Rhodes was in zone coverage 60.7% of the time. And, again, you can push him up near line of scrimmage and have him be physical, but I like him as an off guy at this stage in his career.
He doesn't have that speed to get in press and turn and run.
And he can play in off coverage, and he can read those 2-3 man concepts against the offense. And in zone coverage, he forced 4 pass breakups last year. He had 1 interception, I believe. Yeah, 1 interception in zone coverage.
Yeah, against the Niners.
And so I could see him being a solid zone corner for the Bills.
Especially in cover 2 with that size and that length.
Yeah, and again, if you're gonna have some young guys out there from time to time, and so you want to have a guy that can play zone coverage, that you can't get too exotic, as we saw in the game against the Dolphins with the young secondary. But he's also going to be a good guy in the locker room. He's played a lot of ball. He started a lot of games. So I think his game will translate quite well into the Bills system. And again, he's just one of the spokes in the Bills defense. And so I think he'll fit in just fine. I'm not too worried about him. So good signing. Good signing. It was bound to happen with as many injuries as they've had in the secondary. Carl, we appreciate the donation super chat there. He says, imagine how good Josh would be if being invested heavily in the offensive line, which can give him solid protection and can open up running lanes. That's fair. I'm just over, draft time. I feel like Aaron Quinn and I are just like, yes, let's go interior offensive line. Let's get a guard. Let's get a good guard. They just don't. That's just his philosophy. He puts priority. He prioritizes other positions over guard. And what he does is he throw darts at the board when it comes to some of those interior offensive linemen and depth guys is, hey, I'm going to play a numbers game. I'm going to throw several mid-level, mid-tier guys in there, have them compete, and whoever wins gets the job. So, yeah, I understand that, Carl. But, it's guard. It's been rough. Bates has struggled a little bit. Saffold has struggled a little bit. But as we said, it's a small sample right now. They're changing scheme under Cromer from Bobby Johnson. So there's some changes that are happening and some new techniques. You got to give it some time. Let the sample, grow a little more. But I appreciate the super chat there, Carl.
Yeah, and I get it. I've been live on draft night 2 years in a row. Last year I was staring at Creed Humphrey and I got a nope. This year I was staring at Dylan Parham and I got a nope. I feel you on the offensive line piece. But again, I also think too, not to give Bean a pass, you can't have studs everywhere. There's only a finite amount of resources that you can allocate, and they choose to go elsewhere and build in certain ways. And it's gotten them to be a pretty good team at this point. But again, Eric, I love your piece on it's week 3. Even if the Bills were cooking and we're scoring 50 points a game, I would tell everybody it's only 3 weeks. It's a small sample size.
And that's a great point, right? Because, it's like they say, you don't want to peak too soon or too early, right? Yeah. So, there better be some things that aren't clicking right away because, you want them to grow and you want to have some new ammo later in the year. So, I know it's a weird way to look at things, but you're right, man. Even if we were on the positive side when it came to the run game, we're like, okay, where do we go from here? So
yeah,
it's a great point.
Yeah, no team, good or bad, knows who they are in September. It's a far cry from what any team is in September versus who they are in December and playoff time and come time to compete for a championship. And speaking of championship, we offer championship content here at Cover One. You folks should know the drill by now at this point. Cover One pass. You might say, what is that? Or you might see it on this graphic right now and be like, why should I subscribe? And you should subscribe because you get exclusive members-only content. You get in-depth analysis, including scheme, play, and player breakdowns. You get access to the Cover One community. That's probably, I don't know. I get so many people who always talk it up in the comments on Disguise coverage all the time when I mention it, and even here too as well. The Slack channel where you get access to all of the Cover One content creators in addition to that community, and then all the different channels that are available. You have film stuff. You've got General Bills Talk. You've got a fantasy football channel. There's just a multitude of options in addition to behind the scenes content. Like when you and I sat down and did an interview with Shaq Lawson, breaking down some film. We released that through One Pass. We've got special glossary content from you and myself and Kendall Mursky breaking down scheme and technique and play pieces that the Bills use, but that also are broad and span across the entire NFL to expand your knowledge. Oh, awesome, Caleb. Caleb says he got his t-shirt and his stickers yesterday. Clap it up for Caleb being in awesome. That One Pass. Yeah, we've got a ton of exclusive content and access on unlimited devices. And this is another one of our options and avenues, Erik, where we try to push this thing further than we already have as we continue to grow and expand.
Yeah, all of the memberships you saw, Sports Info Solutions, Pro Football Focus, Football Outsiders, the Huddle account where we're breaking down the film and using Telestrator, we wouldn't be able to do that without the premium subscribers, without One Pass Club access. You get the t-shirt, you get the stickers here, and all the things that Anthony went over. Like, it's $57 for the year, and it allows us to do all the things we do and provide you guys that in-depth content that you guys crave. I mean, you're here, you're sitting through an hour and a half of a film room with us. You're obviously film junkies and X's and O's guys and Bills fans and maybe even some Dolphins fans here. So we wouldn't be able to do any of this without you guys, and especially without our One Pass subscribers. Get that today for $57 for the year. It's 57 because we're hoping that the Bills make a run for that big game, Super Bowl 57. So with that said, man, that was a fun broadcast. That was a good film room. A lot of pressure on Josh Allen. I know there's a lot of talk that, they're putting too much on his plate and it's too Josh Allen centric. It's funny they only say that when they lose by 2 points instead of when they're winning big by several touchdowns. But we'll just let that slide because we showed you why that pressure was big and how Josh Allen handled all that pressure. That 85, 90% of their offense, yada, yada, whatever numbers they want to throw at you. Josh Allen can handle it. He's the identity of the offense. And he showed he could handle it there. It just saw a couple bounces didn't go their way. So, Anthony, with that said, what you got going for Disguise coverage and other content coming this week?
So Disguise coverage is live tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern. In the front half of the show, I'm going to be doing some stock up and stock down coming out of that Dolphins game and heading into this semi-important game against the Baltimore Ravens coming up this weekend. And then on the back half of tomorrow's episode, I'm going to have Cole Jackson on. He covers the Ravens, does a ton. Yeah, he's awesome. He knows his stuff, X's and O's, scheme, structure, talking ball. He and I are going to sit down and go over each of our, the theme for Disguise coverage in season. We're each going to give our top 3 in-depth matchups to watch for. Could be player versus player, could be structural, could be schematic, so on and so forth, to really break down and deep dive into Ravens and Bills heading into this weekend. And then last piece, #workhorse, myself, Russell Brown, and Kendall Mursky will be live this upcoming Sunday at 7:15 p.m. Eastern, like we are every Sunday at 7:15 p.m. Eastern, as we run Cover One Football Weekly. We will be talking about the most important games, players, notes from around the entire NFL. Could be Bills related, could be opponent related. If you're a football fan, if you're a Bills fan, doesn't matter. Tune in live Sunday at 7:15 p.m. as we break down everything you need to know from across the NFL week after week. That's what I got. I got a lot.
Yeah, you're the workhorse, man. I just shared a link to the breakdown of the defense, the Bills defense versus the Dolphins offense. That was the latest Cover One film room feature. I talk about some of the plays that the Dolphins hit on the Bills, especially against the young secondary players, and how that happened, how that unfolded, and the plays that the Dolphins saw on film from the Titans game and early in the game against the Bills, and how they adjusted and tweaked. McDaniel tweaked a few things to get guys like Jalen Waddle open down the field versus that young secondary. So take a look at that after we dive out of the film room here. But man, it sucks to lose, but even in losses, there's some fun stuff to break down in the film room, and I hope you guys were able to gather some good X's and O's talk from that film room.
That's what we aim for here with this brand, but especially this show, the X's and O's, and really explaining the hows and whys behind anything and everything to really help you guys all learn more about the team and the sport that you love. Like Erik mentioned, we want to thank everyone who tuned in live, sitting with us for over an hour and a half as we dove into the film of a loss for the Buffalo Bills. So everybody who joined us live, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all the super chats, the kind words, the engagement with us, the engagement with each other, the back and forth. We love seeing that chat light up and all the good football conversation that happens there. If you're still here, please drop a like on this video on YouTube. If you are watching later, that's cool. Post live likes are also accepted. I say it every week. I know it's corny, but those likes go a long way towards helping us to track and trend in front of more eyes and ears. If you are listening to this episode on any one of the podcasting apps or platforms, thank you very much for your listen, your download, whatever have you. Please rate and review and subscribe to the Cover One Film Room. Subscribe here on YouTube as well. Awesome comment for RJ saying that he definitely loves the NFL recap show that we're doing. Yes, shout out for Cover One Football Weekly. We got you covered with anything and everything you need here for the Buffalo Bills for Cover One. And now with Cover One Football Weekly, we're starting to expand and plant that flag across more fan bases than the entire league as well. And none of it would be possible without the support of all of you fine folks. So again, thank you very much for tuning in live, later, watching later, listening later, whatever have you. Please rate and review and subscribe. Tell your family and friends and loved ones about how awesome the show is. If you thought it was terrible, tell your enemies, try and ruin their day with it. For myself, Anthony Prohaska, for Erik Turner, for our sponsor, Nickel City Cigars, this has been another episode of the Cover One Film Room. We will see you next week. And as always, go Bills.